Hi there, this is Ernie. Today I'm going to show you how to remove the magazine safety from a new Ruger LC9s. That's the striker fire model. I've done this earlier today on a different gun, and today I'm going to do it on this gun. I've also done this before on a regular LC9, the old double action trigger, and this is quite a bit different than that particular model. So these are the pieces I'm going to be removing. So we'll get started here. First of all, this orange dummy magazine's pretty difficult to get out. You just got to use a lot of pressure on it. And we got to push this tab down here. It's a retainer tab. It's kind of sticky. There we go. Now, I suppose there's better ways to do this, but I just use my finger and push this up a little bit and then get, this is a 1/16 punch. Come in from the back side here, there's a little groove, and just pop this pin out. Easier said than done. There we go. Okay. Put that off to the side. Now I like to prop this up a little bit with a tool of some sort. Another punch here. There's two pins that we're going to take out. Pin on the back of the gun. There we go. And one over here on the front, just in front of the trigger. This, by the way, is a 5/32 punch. Seems to work pretty well. Now this will just slide off. Okay, there's the slide. We can just set that off to the side. We don't need to mess with anything on that. Alrighty. Now you can decide when to do this, but now is probably a good time to remove this trigger safety mechanism right here. There's a tiny little hole right there, which is just the right size for a 1/16 punch. And it's a good time, I think, to remove this now, just because the gun lays nice and flat. So one thing that kind of confused me on the first one is it doesn't look like there's a pin in that hole because the pin is actually hollow, but there is a pin there that can be removed with this 1/16 punch. So let's do that. Okay, now here's a word of caution for you. Here's that pin. It's a tiny little pin. We'll set it off to the side. But here's the word of caution. There is a tiny little spring, hopefully you can see it on the video, that seats down inside this safety. Just leave that alone. If it comes out, it's okay. You can put it back in with a pair of tweezers or a pair of needle nose. There's no real trick to getting it in there. It's pretty intuitive how it goes in there, but just be careful with that tiny little spring there, because we're gonna not want to lose that and use it later. Okay, so we got that out. Now this part of the gun, it's a little bit sticky. Here we go. Again, this is a brand new gun. I've not messed with it. This whole assembly will come out. We can set this frame off to the side. We'll use it later, obviously. Okay. Probably a good thing to do here. This spring is putting a lot of pressure on this this bar here. So put your hand over this so it doesn't go flying off, and pop this loose, this bar here. lay that aside. Alrighty. Now, I want to show you this on the other side. This will probably come off before we're done. This is the safety mechanism and this little spring right here. And notice how this spring sets in there. It kind of looks like a figure eight with about a fourth of the figure eight gone. I think I'll probably just pop that out now so we don't lose it later. Okay, there we go. That comes out. And then we're left with this little spring. See how that seats in there? I need to pay attention to that so that later you can put it back in. I'm going to go ahead and pop it out now with the screwdriver. And this piece, watch for it, it'll fall out too. This is the block for the first pin that we removed. I'll show you how to put that back in later. I looked online for a video on how to remove this. Here's what we're going to remove right here, this magazine safety, but I couldn't find one on the new Striker Fire gun, and they are a lot different, so you can't look at the other ones to do the Striker Fire. You can't look at the regular LC9 in order to do it. Okay, now what we're going to do, if you turn this over, there's a pin, there's a hole right there, and this pin can be accessed from the bottom side. And again, this is a 1/16. So we're going to come at this pin from the back side here. There's not really a great hole there. The pin protrudes a little bit past the hole. I have to try to center it up there. I had a little trouble with this on the first gun I did. There we go. I felt it move. Okay. I forget what you call this pin, but there it is. It just popped out, and it popped out with the trigger spring. So again, be careful with that. We'll set those off to the side. Now that those are out, we can remove this piece here. Just slides right out. There's nothing holding it in at this point. Hopefully you can see that. That just pulls out. Now this whole trigger is going to be able to come out. There we go. Alright, now here's that magazine safety, and behind it, oops, behind it is that spring I showed you right at the first of the video. So that's what keeps the gun from firing when the magazine is removed. Alright, now it's just a process of putting it back together. Put the trigger back in. Put that catch back in. Alright, now hopefully you can see that hole right there. You've got to pull the trigger forward a little bit so that the hole in the top of the trigger aligns right there with the hole in the top of this piece. And then here's something I messed up on the first time. This trigger spring needs to go back in, but when you put it back in, put it in so that this catch is facing forward, like so, because we're going to need to bend that around here in just a minute once we put the pin back in so that there's enough tension on the trigger. I messed that up the first time I did it on the other gun today. So make sure that's pointing forward. Alright, there's our hole. We're lined up. The hole in the spring looks like it's lined up, so now we're going to put this pin back in. Not too easy, really. Got a pair of needle nose here I might have to resort to. Yeah. There we go. It's nope. Okay. Again, that spring needs to be pointing just about straight, parallel with the gun, so that these holes all line up. Try this again. There we go. All right. Probably want to use a punch. Push that all the way down, make sure it's seated. There we go. All right, now remember we got that spring pointing forward there. Okay. Now what we're going to want to do is use a screwdriver or something and bend this around. That'll give you the tension you need when you on the trigger when you start to put this back together. Okay. Kind of got it caught underneath this lip right here. Now we can put this trigger bar back in. Kind of looks like a key. And like so. And it's going to go, the top of it's going to go back on this little pin that sticks out right here. I went ahead and laid it over the top of this spring. And I'm going to come at this spring and kind of do this all in one motion. Push this down. There, it just snaps right in. Okay, so we're in there. See how that looks? All right. This is probably a good time to put this safety back in. And darn it, I lost that spring, so you're going to get to see how to put the spring back in. Got a pair of tweezers here. Here's this tiny, tiny little spring. Just turn this safety trigger over and it just slides in there. There's nothing that keeps it other than just a little friction. It's so tiny. Almost need a magnifying glass for me to get that in there. It wants to stick to your fingers too. It's about as sharp as a pin, probably sharper, just because it's so little. There we go. I think that's seated down in there. Oh, fell out. Yeah, you're better off if you don't have to go through this, but happened on my other guns, so you may as well learn how to put it in there. Okay. All right, I think we got it in. All right, now we're just going to take this, try to keep this facing up so that gravity's your friend here and keeps that spring in there. Just slide it back up through there into that little hole. Sorry, I don't know all the technical terms for this. You can feel the tension once you get it seated in the right place. And now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but we've got a clear hole. The spring and the trigger safety and the trigger itself are all aligned. So I'm going to keep some pressure on that while I reach over here and get that pin that we took out. I think it's easier to put it in at this point than to wait till this goes back into the frame of the gun. But if you disagree, you can always do it later. Turn this around here so I can get my hammer, tap that pin back in. Just pop that trigger bar off, no big deal. Probably should have done that first, or last, I mean. Alright, it's about as good as we're going to do with that. And we can just push it back through with this punch. There we go. Okay, that's back in. Okay, that seems to be working fine. Now we have to get that trigger bar back in there. I am not a gunsmith, and I've only done this once, but hopefully this video will help some other people. It took me about 3 hours to do it the first time. Hopefully after this, somebody else will be able to do it in 15 or 20 minutes. There we go, line that up. Push this down while we still have that in there. There we go. Alright. Got that spring seated below the trigger bar there. Alright, now let's turn this over. And we'll put our safety back in. Safety goes right there. There's a little bar or notch that it goes over. Now we got to get the spring put back in. I've just got a little screwdriver here is all. Some of these parts are so tiny they're hard to work with. Well, it's being a little stubborn. There we go. Okay, that's in. Now this was the piece that held the pin in originally, and make sure you seat that right where the grooves are at the top of this little plastic piece. And if you look at this right, you'll see a couple little pinhole size indentations on the steel. This will just fit right down in there. There we go. Still kind of loose. What actually holds it in place is when you slide it back into the frame of the gun, which I will do now. Okay, slide that trigger group through there. Just push it back down. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to put our frame pins back in. There's the back one. Make sure that front one's aligned. It is. Oop, there we go. Alright, got our frame pins back in. Trigger feels good. Let's put our slide back on. Then put our takedown pin back in. There we go. Make sure that's on fire. Okay, we got to push this takedown pin holder, if that's what you call it, back down. There we go. And again, there may be an easier way. I just put my finger on the tip of the gun there. Push it back a ways. The frame pin, or the takedown pin back in. There we go. Alright, pop that back up. Alright, we should be good to go. Let's see. Yep. The gun fires fine without the magazine in. So that's how you remove the magazine safety on a Ruger LC9s. Do this at your own peril. It's not recommended by the manufacturer, but I wanted mine removed and I wanted to show you how to do it. So I hope that helps. Thank you.